I need you to, before we get into the video, do some pre-questions, and that's the table you see on your screen. And basically, before we get into today's topic, which is simple interest, I need you to do these questions. You can see that I've started already some of the rows. I've got the first three done. We're converting 10% into a fraction, which is 10 on 100, 1/10, and decimals 0.1. 50%, 50 on 100, 1/2 is 0.5. The third row, 5%, is 5 per 100, which is 5 over 100, 1/20th, and 0.05. I would like you to pause the video now and complete the rest and write your answers in your Cornell notes. So how did you go? Now that we've unpaused the video, before we get started on simple interest, let's have a look at how you went with the pre-questions. So the end result is 0.25. That means the percentage was 25%. So to go from a decimal to a percentage, we have to times by 100. Or to go from a percentage to a decimal, we have to divide by 100. And 25% is 25 on 100, which is a quarter. 0.2 times 100 is 20%, which is 20 on 100, which is 2/10, or even better, 1/5. 1/8 is a hint here, quarter of a quarter. Well, there's a quarter, that row there. So it's 0.125 because it is half of 25, which is 12.5%. 1%, well, that's 1 over 100, which is 0.01. See how to go from the percentage to a decimal, we divide by 100, and to go from a decimal to a percentage, we times by 100. Too far. And this one here is a bit hard, a bit more obscure. 1 over 9. So if we got 1 over 9, you can sort of cheat a little bit using your calculator on this one. I wanted you to be able to do all the others in your head, but 0.1 recurring. Okay, so if you took up the hint, you'll get 0.1 recurring. So it's 0.1 with the little line on it, means the ones keep going. It's not just 0.1 because that's 1/10. It's 0.1 recurring, which is 1/9. So that would be times that by 100. We have 11.1 recurring percent. Last one, if you saw the one above, you'll see the one below. It's double the one above. That's 0.2 recurring, so that must be double 1/9, which is 2/9. 22.2 recurring percent. How did you go on the pre-quiz? These are skills you need for simple interest. Alright, interest. What is interest? Interest is actually a fee. Do you pay the fee, or do they pay you the fee? Both. It depends. If it's a loan, you pay the fee to whoever you loan the money off, which might be a bank. If it's an investment, like a savings account or something else, you gain interest. They pay you. Alright, and it's because they're using your money. When a bank uses your money, it doesn't just sit in a vault, it goes in all over the place, and because they're using their money to better themselves and do things for themselves, they pay you money, and it's called interest, and it's as a percentage of the principal. The principal is the amount you borrow or the amount you invest. Okay, so that word was principal. It's the starting amount that you borrow if it's a loan, or it's the amount that you put into the investment at the beginning if it's an investment. Let's have a look at this table here. So we've got, if we had a 5% interest rate and we started with a principal of $5,000, after a year, we would make one lot of 5% of $5,000. So 10% of $5,000 is $500, so half of that is 5%, and that's $250. Or we could have gone 0.05 times 5,000, and you get $250. Next year, if it's simple interest, we would use that same investment principal and we'd get another 250. And that would make 250 plus another 250 would get you to 500. And that's the way it keeps working. It keeps going back to the original amount, and it's $250. Okay, so that's 3 lots of $250, and that's now up to $750. And it repeats. It's a repeating process. So this column on the left is always the same. We got 4 lots of 250 now, which is 1,000. Money. Repeats again. Again, it's $250. And we've got 5 lots of $250, and we have 1250. And it keeps repeating. Okay, so basically for T years, if we replace the 5 with just the general term T years, which T can be any number of years, it's T lots of $250. And simple interest works that way. You can see that it goes up in a steady amount. It always draws on the same initial principal. That doesn't change. If it was to change, that would be a different sort of interest called compound interest, which you'll learn later on in year 10. That stays the same, and we get the 250 piles up in groups. You can see that the interest goes up in a steady amount. It's going up by 200, 250, another 250, another 250, another 250. It's a steady increase, and it's actually a type of linear function, if you really want to know, because it goes up in a steady amount, and that's what linear functions with a positive gradient do. They increase at a steady amount, and that's what simple interest does too. So it doesn't curve up like a parabola or anything curvy like that. It does not do that. It goes up at a steady amount. So it's a flat rate or a simple interest. Here's the formula. You need to know this formula. To compute simple interest, we've got I equals P times R on 100 times T, or a lot of people prefer this neater version of the same formula. So I equals P times R times T. What do the letters all mean? It's pretty easy. I is the amount of interest. It's in dollars. It's not the same as the interest rate. I is the interest you get out of it. So you saw just previously our I value from what we just saw was 1,250, because based on the 5 years we looked at. So that's the amount that comes out of the investment on top of what you had before. Rightio, we've got the next letter is P. So we've got I, we've got P. P is the principal. It's the money borrowed or loaned. It's the money you start out with, as I just mentioned. The next one there is R. R is a percentage rate. It's the interest rate per annum. PA means per annum, which means per year. T is the amount of time, and it's usually stated in years. Now, you've got to be careful here, because your interest rate is always per year. So if you're not given a time amount in years, you need to convert it into years. Otherwise, the formula won't work. So we've got the definition of all the letters there. The next thing it says, when using simple interest, the principal amount is constant and remains unchanged from one period to the next. You saw that in the table. That first column, the $5,000 you see in the left-hand column in yellow, doesn't change. To get the amount out, because this step here in I only tells you how much you've gained. So this I here is how much more you've got than you started with. That's nice, but it doesn't tell you how much you've got altogether. That's how much extra you've got, but how much do you really have? Well, there's the I we just saw, and you need to add it on to what you started with, which is the principal. We call that new amount A. And A might mean amount or accumulated amount. It's accumulated to that amount. So that tells you how much in total you've got. Let's have a look at this example. Alan and Rachel plan to invest some money for their child Kaylin. They invest $4,000, 30 months, in a bank 4.5% per annum. Calculate the simple interest and the amount. So that's calculate I, and that's calculate A at the end of the 30 months. First thing you should always do is write down the information you're given. If you look at the question, we're given those things. We start with a principal of $4,000. The interest rate is 4.5%. Be careful, this is given to you in months. We need to convert that into years. There are 12 months in 1 year. We have 30 months, so it's how many 12s fit into 30? It's 2.5 years and 30 months. We get our formula and we substitute it in, and we get an interest of $450. So how much do we have altogether? We started with 4,000 and we added 450, and we get 4,450. Time to try some simple interest.